Welcome to our channel, all friends. If you are new to my channel, please subscribe my channel and press the bell icon to stay update for new videos. Thanks. Let's start new video. I had heard that most Arab men are very wealthy and indulgent. In this age of social media, I also saw many videos where Arab men were seen dancing with women, seeming to forget their culture, traditions, and religion, and had embarked on a different path. But I didn't know that Arab men also possessed a special quality. I always wondered how Arab men could marry so many times. How was it possible to have 4 wives at once, keep them happy and satisfied, and bear their expenses? Well, one can bear expenses with their wealth, but giving time and attention to all 4 wives seemed impossible to me because I lived in Pakistan, where a man often can't even give full attention to one wife at a time. That's why it was a peculiar thing for me. But then Jahangir came into my life. He was my husband's cousin. He had spent many years in Saudi Arabia, and now he had returned for holidays and came to stay at our house because he had no family here. My husband was his cousin, and he always came to our house. This was his second visit after my marriage, so seeing him, I felt a little worried about how I would manage with him in the same house, and that too for a whole 2 months. Like last time, my husband explained that it was only for 2 months. Jahangir had no one else besides him, so where else would he go? There was also an extra room in the house, so I shouldn't worry. He was extremely gentle and righteous. My husband tried to reassure me by saying this, but I knew very well why my husband insisted on keeping him in our house. It was because he brought a lot of gifts, valuable things, and money with him. And before leaving, he would hand over a lot to my husband, Adnan. Adnan had agreed for his money, which is why he treated him with immense affection and expected me to also constantly attend to him. Last time he came, he was quite a young boy and seemed younger than me in age. But this time when he came, he looked as if he was older than me, more experienced, more robust. Seeing Jahangir, I simply said hello quietly and then took his luggage to his room. It was my misfortune that I had no children, so I spent all my time alone at home. Adnan worked at a shoe shop. He would leave at 11 a.m. and sometimes return at 1 a.m. or 2 a.m., and that's why I didn't want to keep Jahangir in my house. But I was helpless in front of my husband. Our financial situation wasn't very good, and in such a situation, Jahangir was like a lottery for us. Jahangir was about 26 or 27 years old. 5 years ago when he came, he wasn't like he felt this time. There was a strange depth in his gaze. When he looked at me, it felt as if he was seeing right through my being. When he spoke to me, his smile seemed very mysterious. My effort was always to not talk to him much. It had been 2 days since he arrived. Adnan had taken 2 days off to spend time with him, but since he was here for 2 months, on the 3rd day, Adnan explained things to me and went to the shop, telling me not to let him lack anything, to take care of his food and drink on time. He had a habit of drinking coffee repeatedly, and the weather was also cold, so Adnan told me to keep making him coffee, etc. I looked at Adnan angrily. I was used to living alone at home. I couldn't tolerate anyone's presence anyway. On top of that, I had been made his free maid. Adnan himself had been looking after everything for him for 2 days, so I wasn't worried. But now, when Adnan left for his shop sharp at 11 in the morning, and it was just Jahangir and I at home, I started feeling annoyed and bored. I deliberately stayed in my room for half the day, but when it was time for lunch, I was forced to come out of the room. I was just heading towards the kitchen when my eyes fell on Jahangir, who was already in the kitchen. Seeing him, I stopped short and then went and stood near the kitchen door. I didn't want to go inside while he was there because the kitchen was very small, but he smiled at me, greeted me, and said, "Bobby, you were probably sleeping, so I thought I'd prepare lunch." I looked and saw that food was cooking on one stove. He was cutting some vegetables on one side, and on the other stove, he had put milk to boil. I asked in surprise, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm making a sweet dish for you along with the vegetable pilaf. You were sleeping, so I went and bought the groceries myself." I saw that his hands were moving very deftly. I felt a sense of embarrassment. I said, "Jahangir, there's no need for all this. I'll do it myself. You go and rest. You've only come for a few days, and you must have to work in Saudi Arabia too, right?" Suddenly, a wave of embarrassment enveloped me, along with sympathy. He had no parents. His sisters were married, so he didn't go to anyone's house there. He was an only child and Adnan was his only cousin, which is why he always ended up coming to us. And here I was, making a face and making him feel like an outsider. When this realization hit me, I entered the kitchen myself. He said, No, Asma Bhabhi, don't worry. I'm used to doing all this. Anyway, I was getting bored. What would I do alone in the house? I don't even feel like going out anywhere. This time, I've come with the thought that I'll get married before I leave. Saying this, he looked at me with strange eyes, which made me a bit confused. However, I was certainly surprised by the marriage talk. I hadn't even considered that he might have come with the idea of getting married. I asked in surprise, You've come to get married. Have you chosen a girl? He suddenly moved very close to me, looking at me from head to toe, and said, I have chosen a girl. If you support me, everything will be possible. I looked at him with a start. I didn't understand the meaning of his words, but then he said, You go. I'll cook and set the table, then I'll call you. I said, Tell me, who have you chosen? But he said, At the right time, I will tell Jahangir Bhai and you together. I don't want to spoil anything by telling you now. First, let me win your heart for a few days. Saying this, he got back to work, and I quietly went and sat at the dining table. However, a stir had begun in my mind. Who did he want to marry? And why did he need to make me happy? I was still pondering this when, a little while later, he had completely set the table and came and sat next to me. He served food onto my plate with his own hands and then said, Bhabhi, what's wrong? You don't look happy. Doesn't Jahangir Bhai take care of you? Saying this, he cast a fleeting glance at me, and my eyes filled with tears. What could I tell him? That my husband was indeed failing to make me happy. I wanted children, but my husband was not capable of giving me children. Yes, I certainly loved Adnan a lot, which is why I never thought about leaving him. From my silence, I don't know what Jahangir deduced, but he said, Bhabhi, I think everything isn't all right between you and Jahangir Bhai. I want you both to be happy together. I put on a fake smile and told Jahangir that Adnan and I were happy together, and he was mistaken. He said, If that's the case, then why was Adnan Bhai pacing outside the room all night? At first, I thought maybe you two had an argument, but then I realized he was completely normal, as if this happens often. Is he not with you in the room at night? Jahangir's intensely personal question set my body on fire. I looked at him angrily. What kind of things are you saying, Jahangir? This is a private matter between me and Adnan. It would be better if you don't interfere. Seeing my bad mood, Jahangir was silent for a few moments, then said, I apologize. I just wanted to see you happy. That's why I asked such a question. Actually, I feel like you're not happy. There's a void and a deficiency between you two. I came 5 years ago, and even then you both lived together. There were no children then either, but you both were happy. But now it seems like you're not happy. My heart ached at Jahangir's words. I glanced at him and said, When a person is childless for 5 years, happiness just leaves their life. Adnan can't give me the attention and time I need. And most importantly, I don't have children, and Adnan runs away from me. If he spends a little time with me, he starts feeling unwell. He says that his health doesn't allow it. I'm at the shop from 11 a.m. to 1 a.m. After that, it's very difficult for me to spend time with you. Without wanting to, my heart's feelings came to my tongue because there was no one in my life with whom I could share such personal matters, share my loneliness and sorrow. Adnan truly remained withdrawn and distant from me. As soon as he came near me, he would feel tired and leave the room. The same thing had happened last night, and that's what came to my tongue. Jahangir heard my words and looked at me for a while, then said, Do you know that Arab men have 4 wives and many women reside in their harems just like that? Do you know what's surprising? They manage to keep all of them extremely happy because the strength of Arab men is completely different. Saying this, he gave a half smile and I was left staring at him. Jahangir's words were 100% accurate. A friend of mine who lived in Saudi Arabia had also told me the same thing. Most Arab men there marry more than once. But at that time, I had thought they did it because of religious tradition. But now it felt to me that keeping 4 wives at once in this day and age was incredibly difficult. Even if a person had money, they didn't possess enough strength to keep 4 wives happy. That's why I looked at Jahangir with questioning eyes and then asked, Do they keep all 4 of their wives happy? Jahangir nodded in affirmation. He said, "Yes, you know I've lived there for 8 or 9 years, so I have all the information. Plus, I work in the harem of an Arab woman. My job is to cook, so I know many things about that place that others don't. Do you know Arab men use a special ingredient after which they can keep not just 4 but even 40 wives happy? And then there are our men who can't even keep one wife happy." As he said this and looked at me, I felt embarrassed, as if he had caught my secret. I also regretted why I had told him about my room. If he were to say something like that to Adnan, what would be left of my relationship with Adnan? So I immediately folded my hands in front of him and said, "Jahangir, I just said that to you without thinking. Please don't mention anything about this to Adnan." He immediately held my clasped hands and said, "Hobby, I love you very much. You have always taken great care of me. You are everything to me. That's why whenever I come to Pakistan, I come to your house because I feel a sense of belonging here. Why would I ruin your and Adnan Bhai's relationship? However, these distances between you two don't seem right to me at all. You'll see, everything will be fine soon. Don't worry." Hearing him, I nodded in agreement and then started eating. He had cooked such delicious food that I kept licking my fingers. I looked at him in surprise and said, "I didn't even know you cook for Arab women. You've really made wonderful food." He smiled and said, "My cooking is quite famous there. All the friends of the Arab lady whose bungalow I work at come just to eat my food, and do you know what? I've even introduced them to the delights of Pakistani food." Saying this, he burst into laughter, and I also smiled. After eating, I went to wash the dishes. He also left the house. In the evening, he returned, having bought quite a few groceries and treats. I felt embarrassed and said, "You shouldn't bring all this. You're our guest. If you need anything, just tell me." He sat down next to me and said, "I'm aware of your situation. I know Adnan Bhai's shop doesn't earn enough for you to get by, so you don't need to worry. I don't have any family to spend on. I brought gifts for my sisters, and I've already given them. My brothers-in-law are very greedy men, so I don't want to get them used to my money. Otherwise, they'll trouble my sisters even more tomorrow." Hearing him, the thought crossed my mind that Adnan also keeps him out of greed, but I couldn't say it. He sat and chatted with me for quite a while, and I realized he wasn't as bad as I thought. He was a loving and caring person, perhaps troubled by his own loneliness and emptiness, as there was no one in his life either, just as I was enduring loneliness. That's why I became friends with him. However, sometimes while talking, he would say some ambiguous things whose meaning I didn't understand. Then that night, when Adnan returned home from the shop and I wanted to spend time with him, he instantly became angry, saying that he was very tired and wanted to rest. Hearing him, tears came to my eyes and I cried, "Adnan, why don't you understand? I need your attention, your closeness. I desire children. I want us to see a good doctor so our lap can be filled." Hearing me, Adnan picked up the glass from the side table and threw it against the wall, saying, "You know I don't have enough money to waste on doctors. Doctors' fees, medicines, tests, everything is beyond my means. Not only are you barren, but you've also made my life miserable." It was the first time he had said something like that, and my heart was shattered. I looked at him in surprise. "Adnan, who told you I'm barren? To this day, we haven't seen a proper doctor or received any treatment. So why have you labeled me barren? Maybe the problem is with you." The words that had been in my heart for years spilled out, because I was quite certain there was nothing wrong with me. Whatever the issue was, it was with Adnan. His behavior towards me also reflected this. When I said that, he became extremely angry and left the room. Then I heard the outer door of the house bang shut, and I burst into tears. It clearly meant he had left the house. I was still shedding tears when Jahangir entered my room. He stood at the door looking at me in surprise. "Bobby, is everything all right?" There was a sound of glass breaking so loudly, and then the house door closed. He was looking at me worriedly, and I kept crying. "Bobby, tell me, are you okay?" He carefully avoided the broken glass, came inside, and sat down on the bed next to me. Crying, I told him, "Your brother calls me barren, but I think there's some problem with him. He doesn't want to see a doctor, nor does he want to come near me. How long will I live this lonely life? If I had a sister, I would tell her my sorrow. No siblings, no parents. I'm left alone in this world. I wish mother and father had spent a little more time with me. Today they would have listened to my pain, shared the ache in my heart. Being an only child is a great torment that I feel intensely. I rested my head on his shoulder crying, and then he stroked my head, calming me down. Bobby, if you think there's a problem with Adnan Bhai, I can solve your problem. Hearing him, I looked at him with a start, and he continued, maybe he really has some weakness, and I can treat it the same way Arab men maintain their strength. You know, I work as a cook in Arab households, so I know what things they eat. It's what keeps their strength. I'll cook the same thing for dinner tonight, and you'll feed it to Adnan Bhai. Do that for a day or two, and you'll see what a difference it makes. Hearing Adnan's words, I fell into thought. Then I thanked him, and he went to his room, while Adnan didn't return until morning. When he came in the morning, he just drank a cup of tea and went to sleep, and then left for his shop. He didn't apologize for his behavior from the night before, nor did he say anything, even though I felt it was entirely his fault. Still, despite that, when I called him in the afternoon, I apologized to him myself because I couldn't bear my husband's angry demeanor. And then I also told him that I was going to prepare a very special dish for him that night. Hearing this, he became happy because he was fond of good food. Then Jahangir went into the kitchen and started doing who knows what. He prepared the dinner himself, and when the food was served on the dining table, the whole house was filled with the aroma. He had made a small, special dish in a bowl, which I placed in front of Adnan, saying that I had prepared it. Adnan ate that dish with great relish, and after that, he went to sleep. Jahangir smiled at me and said, Bobby, just keep feeding this to Bhai for 2 or 4 days, and you'll see all his fatigue and weakness disappear. I thanked him, and at the same time, I felt embarrassed in front of him. He was a non-mahram man, and perhaps I shouldn't have discussed such things with him, but time and circumstances force a person. After cleaning the kitchen and washing the dishes, when I returned to the room, I was surprised to see Adnan awake. He was sitting peacefully on the bed. Seeing me, he said, "Where have you been, Asma? I've been waiting for you for so long. You made very delicious food today. Come here, next to me." Adnan called me lovingly to his side and then kissed my hands. Today's food was very tasty, and I apologize for yesterday's behavior. Actually, due to fatigue, my mood sometimes gets bad. I know you are not barren, but in anger, a person says anything. Please forgive me if you can. I smiled and immediately forgave my husband. Then he embraced me and started talking to me. This act was very surprising for me, and even more surprising was the next moment when he suddenly became restless and came close to me, showering me with his love. After a long time, I was seeing this change in him. He was fulfilling my right with full enthusiasm. And then, when he went to the washroom, tired after a while, I was left astonished and wondering if I was seeing a dream or reality. It had been almost 6 months since he had come so close to me like this. Tears were coming to my eyes. My heart wanted to thank Jahangir, who had suddenly filled my life with the colors of happiness. The next morning, when Adnan went to the shop, I thanked Jahangir. He said, "Bobby, I'll teach you how this dish is prepared, and then you can feed this to Bhai. Soon all his weakness will disappear." Jahangir opened the deep freezer and took out a packet of meat, placing it in front of me. He said, "This is special camel meat that I bought." Then he added some spices and ground black pepper to it and put it on a low flame with a little oil, saying, "It will take many hours to cook through, but after that, it will not only be delicious, but also double in strength, and you just have to feed him this. After that, you'll see how all of Adnan Bhai's fatigue will disappear." He smiled and told me a use for black pepper that left me astonished, how cooking camel meat with black pepper gives a person strength. I then thanked him. He said, "I don't need thanks, I need something else." I immediately said, "Tell me, Jahangir, what do you need?" And then Jahangir said something that left me stunned. He said, "You have a cousin, Rabia, right? When I came last time, I saw her, and I liked her very much. If you want, you can arrange my marriage with her." Saying this, he expressed his heartfelt desire to me, and I burst out laughing. I understood why he had been talking about making me happy all these days. Actually, he wanted to marry my maternal uncle's daughter. There was nothing wrong with Rabia, nor with Jahangir. That's why I myself took Jahangir's proposal, and went to my maternal uncle's house just 2 days later. And then, a week later, at my insistence, my maternal uncle arranged Rabia's marriage with Jahangir. In that 1 week, Adnan's behavior had also changed a lot because I was cooking that same dish for him every night. Since Jahangir was only here for 2 months, Jahangir and Rabia's wedding was celebrated with great pomp within a month. Jahangir had submitted Rabia's documents for processing, and then in the second month, when he was about to return, he came to meet me. Actually, after marrying Rabia, he had rented a separate house, and they had stayed there for a month. Then he dropped Rabia off at her home and came to meet us before going abroad. I was very grateful to him, but he was even more grateful to me for arranging his marriage with Rabia, and then he returned abroad. A month after he left, I found out that I was pregnant. My happiness knew no bounds. My husband's behavior towards me had also become very good. Today I am very grateful to Allah Almighty that everything turned out perfectly. Sometimes I think that when a person shows kindness to others, they definitely receive some reward from Allah Almighty. If I hadn't kept Jahangir in my home or taken care of him, perhaps my life wouldn't be filled with so many colors of happiness today.